Hey everybody, it's Jason from Parallel Reality back with you here today to go over something that's actually really funny, and I don't know if anybody actually saw this, but there was some article that came out from the publication Wired a couple days ago that was like the most, I don't even know what to call it, but you want to talk about the like a saccharine profile of Pete Buttigieg. Like, we're talking like these guys, the people that wrote this must have just been like, we are going to make you look like the most wonderful human being that has ever existed on the face of the planet. So the Federalist here, an article from May 18th, decided to go, let's comment on that. And so the article is called, Let's Probe the Beautiful, Voluminous, and Transcendent Mind of the World's Most Remarkable Human Being, Pete Buttigieg, because the article that Wired wrote is just, oh my God, let's just fillet the guy a little bit more. Why don't we? So the Federalist article says, it is the year of our Lord 2023, and I finally read the most obsequious feature story that has ever been written about a politician in a major publication. Wired magazine was once home to thought-provoking writing on technology and entrepreneurship. Today it pumps out slabs of conventional left-of-center technocratic wisdom. But Virginia Heffernan's depiction of Pete Buttigieg's glorious mind is so much more. It is a masterpiece. And this link here is the link to the story, and I'm not going to click on it. I'm not going to give him a click. And I've heard that this woman's written some other ridiculous puff pieces about other politicians as well. I can't remember which ones in particular, but I'd probably suggest checking those out. So it says the magic begins with the headline and subheadline and then refuses to let up. The headline was Pete Buttigieg loves God, beer, and his electric Mustang. Not cutting that out. The subheadline says, sure, the U.S. Secretary of Transportation has thoughts on building bridges, but infrastructure occupies just a sliver of his voluminous mind. Okay. This is indeed, Heffernan informs us, Buttigieg is compelled to hold much of his intellectual powers in reserve because a cabinet job requires only a modest portion of his cognitive powers. Is this guy like the leader, like the Hulk villain? Or from like that old MTV cartoon from the 90s, what was it? The Head or something like that, with the dude with the giant head. what do you think this guy is? Like, or the Brain from Pinky and the Brain? Like, who? Like, what? So the Wired article that's quoted here says, even as he discusses railroads and airlines down to the pointless data that is his current stock in trade, the U.S. Secretary of Transportation comes off like a Mensa black card holder who might have a secret go habit or a 3-second Rubik's Cube solution or a knack for supplying off the top of his head the day of the week for a random date in 1404, along with the non-condescending history of the Julian and Gregorian calendars. That was a whole bunch of word salad. Okay. And then back to the Federalist article, it says beautiful, right? But it's when this hyper-syncophatic prose collides with MayorPete's real-world, tedious, cliche-written tautologies that the piece really springs to life. Yeah, the guy does not have a mind of his own. Like, everything he says is canned language. He's, like, it seems like he's barely coherent half the time. He obviously doesn't know how to do his job. I mean, if your job is so important that when you go on paternity leave, that nobody knows you were gone for 2 months, like, maybe your job really isn't that important. Never mind the entire department. Get rid of it if we can. So the article here says, fortunately, writes Heffernan, Harvard PhD, he was willing to devote yet another apse in his cathedral mind to making his ideas about 3 mighty themes, neoliberalism, masculinity, and Christianity, intelligible to me. It says, and in fairness, Heffernan, spelled her name wrong there, spelled it differently right up here, so Federalist, just a heads up on that. It says, in fairness, Heffernan does throw around lots of isms in an effort to sound smart. Neoliberalism, paleoliberalism, and episcopalianism. Oh my. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. So, but it's worth the wait as Buttigieg finally unsheathes his preternatural cerebral powers to explain the failures of neoliberalism. Because the dude's a commie. Says, we have experienced the end of history. We have certainly experienced the limitations of the consensus. Okay? To mere mortals, that probably sounds like a bunch of inane DC polispeak gibberish. Yes, it does, actually. And yes, the rest of the answer is verbatim to what any Ivy League sophomore interning at the Brookings Institution would say. But is your mind a cathedral? That's what I thought. It says, when Heffernan asks our hero whether Republicans want to be dragged into a bigger far-right project, far-right barely exists, statistics back that up, including the renunciation of democracy, No one on the right is asking for that. You guys actually are. You commie. You certainly are. It says modernity, civil rights, and human rights. The greatest mind of our generation, perhaps any, treats readers to his fresh, incisive perspective. The two greatest pillars of the mainstream right, destroying democracy, modernity, civil rights, and human rights, says Mayor Pete, are the GOP's efforts to limit abortion and lower taxes for the wealthy. Wow, this guy he's so smart, I can barely continue with this. He is such an idiot. Says, I bet you dummies are pretty mad you never thought of that, right? But to top it off, Mayor Pete drops these words on us. They are now the dog that caught the car. And to switch metaphors, they rode a tiger to get there. They made a lot of distasteful bargains in order to get there. What are you even talking about? So the article says, who can continue? The man who once told us that the shape of our democracy is the issue that affects every other issue also illuminates our understanding Christianity. Says, when you're making public policy, the political left's go-to man on faith notes, you're often asking yourself, how does this choice help people who would have the least going for them? Help the poor? Finally, a new concept for Christians to ponder. Says, naturally, Buttigieg and Heffernan also take on the masculinist and anti-democratic preoccupations of the right. Neither one of those things, which is actually true, but it is also coming from a guy that is not very masculine, so there you go. This is the politicization of masculinity as code for nothing in your life has to change. The problem is, of course, lots of things have to change, Buttigieg explains, either because there was something wrong with the old way, or because even as the old way seemed perfectly fine, it's not an option. Now, perhaps some of you are thinking that Buttigieg might have slightly too much of that intellectual capacity in reserve. I say it's all perfect. Yeah, so what I would suggest is go and read that Wired article, because, I mean, if it's like the equivalent of watching a movie and within 10 minutes knowing that you're just going to hate it. Like, that's basically what it is. It's just this, like, dripping with, like, oh my god, I'm just going to blow this guy up. And, like, even the stuff that's quoted here, unless there's something in that Wired article that's, like, actually profound, like, he doesn't sound like anyone that's particularly smart, even if he went to Harvard. Okay? And, I mean, you're taking a guy who was essentially a failed mayor of a small town in Indiana. It was actually South Bend, whose people did not like him. He had very, like, major problems with the black community there. They hated him. And then he got upjumped basically because he was gay. So now he's the Secretary of Transportation. What's his experience in that area? Nothing. He has absolutely no experience in that. And I remember, like, his interview when he got promoted to that was something along the lines of, like, I like trains and I met my husband in, like, a train station or something, or like might have even been an airport. And it was like, okay, but how does that explain how you can do the job? And of course, that's not there anywhere. Like, the guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's only in this position because he's essentially a diversity hire. Not essentially, he is a diversity hire. That's all he is. He's not smart. He's not as smart as he thinks. And he's a communist, so forget it. He doesn't deserve to be where he is. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.